Hello and welcome to the IT Pro TV webinar series live from the IT Pro TV studios. Today we're talking all things cybersecurity with Edutainer Daniel Lowrie and security expert Ben Finke. Ben is the co-founder of OnDefend and an organizer for B-Sides Jacksonville. He's a lead security assessor with experience in penetration testing, web application security, vulnerability management, and compliance assessments. Daniel is one of our IT Pro TV edutainers, specializing in cybersecurity topics. He's a red teamer who teaches courses like CompTIA Pentest Plus and CEH V11 for the platform.
Hey, I'm your moderator for today, Sophie Goodwin. We want you to chime in on our chats today with any questions, comments. So go ahead and make sure you type in your questions in the chat, whether you're joining in on our IT Pro TV live site. I'm so sorry. Help guide our conversation today. You can tell this is our first time doing this, right? Guide our conversation today, whether you're on GoToWebinar, LinkedIn, YouTube, or IT Pro TV Live. Just put your questions in the chat, and as always, one lucky winner will win some swag, so make sure to stick around till the end for that, and just put your questions in for a chance to win. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to you because I clearly don't know what I'm doing. Take it away, Daniel.
All right, thank you so much, Sophie. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and with today's guest, my main man on one, Mr. Ben Finke. Ben, welcome to the show, sir. How art thou? And hopefully you are doing very well.
Oh man, good afternoon, Daniel. I am really excited to be here. Thanks for the invite. Always enjoy chatting with you and the questions that the team comes up with here. I always try to anticipate what we're going to be asked. I'm always surprised and wrong at how awesome the questions are. So yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, we've got good chat room conversation always. It never fails. Those people out there, they've got great questions. And it's because I think a lot of us have, different perspectives and different purviews, so they want to get your take on things. And of course, we're looking for guests to come on here. One of the first names that came to mind was yours, because I know you've been doing this for a hot minute. You got a lot of people that work for you that do this. You have your fingers in just about every cybersecurity thing I can think of. So I say, man, we got to get Ben up in here and get some questions going on him. That said, we typically like to just hit the ground running because there's a lot of people going, I have questions. Stop rambling, Daniel. I say, all right, okay. So Sophia, does the chat room have anything for us?
Well, I'm glad you said it because I didn't want to say it. But we do. We actually have some questions coming in already. This first one is from Eric. They're asking, what is the best technique to use when walking into a boardroom asking for funding for cybersecurity?
Well, I find a gun to be a gentle persuader. Don't do that, though. That's the wrong answer. But Ben, I bet you've got a good answer for that one.
I think if you're going to bring a gun into a boardroom, you should have excellent lawyers as well.
Yes.
You will probably need them. So no, that's a great question.
Legal team.
Yeah, that's super good. So I think for me, the trick is understanding the language that the board typically thinks in, which is almost always money.
Tell me more.
Or losing money or not making money. So unfortunately, most of the time, security is not a profit center. It's a cost center, which means it can only cost you money, right? So you're going to have to go in armed with some evidence as to why a thing you want to do that almost certainly costs more money, because that's why you're there, is worth it to them. So as an example, if you were to say, I have this really great idea I'd like to try. It looks like it would cost $100,000, which seems like lots of money to you and I, and it is, but to organizations, not necessarily. If you say, but if we implement this, I think I can reduce the amount of risk in our business side by the tune of something that like $60 million. You come up with a number, and those are super, super helpful, right? The money numbers are sometimes hard to come up with, though, because everybody immediately assumes that they're nonsense if they don't fit their idea of what the thing should be. So evidence of any kind is really good. Metrics, numbers, things you can show them, distilled down into one slide. You have to be able to describe your idea in one PowerPoint slide.
I like where your mind goes with this because it seems to be pushing on their fears.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to, I was listening to Darknet Diaries this morning, and they were talking to Ed Scotus. And Ed was like, yeah, we did a pen test on this doll for this toy company, and we found this where we could replay a message that the doll can record messages and then replay the messages, and we could replay old messages. And they thought, oh, that's not a critical finding. They said, well, let's see what we can do with this. And they got to where it was like CPU intensive. It was heating the doll up. So they put in their findings that it would scald a child. And they're like, okay, yes, we're listening now. We don't want our
Yeah, that
product
seems
to be
important.
hurting children. Then it perked up their ears. So money and injuring your user base, probably not a good thing, and you can solve that problem with a little bit of security, huh?
Yeah. The fear, unfortunately, happens a lot. The other thing you can do, which I see a lot, is boards will get really interested in whatever the Harvard Business Review or whatever they see like in the Wall Street Journal on a thing. So if you know that there's like, I don't know, a new ransomware gang whose name got in the news, like Conti or something, you might want to like use that to frame your argument, because they recognize that name and they don't want to go to their country club and be the people who got by the Conti gang. So I would always be looking for some names you can drop in the cyber threat actor space, right?
That's right.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, be like, I didn't get hit by Conti. I mean, Lapsus is a different story, but Conti never.
Totally. Lapsus pays people to get in. Conti just breaks right on in.
They're just too good at their job. All right, I mean, it seems like that is the kind of stuff that, like, when we're teaching courses on, risk and trying to define risk, and this is where that kind of thing applies, where you're pulling out those lovely, magic formulas of, what is it, SLE times arrow, and that kind of stuff, where you're trying to quantify that actual risk into something that they can latch their teeth into and go, oh, yes. So I'm spending money. Well, so security is a bit of a cost output, but it's so that it's not costing me more money. Because I was
potentially costing you an enormous amount of money.
Yeah, we have a little saying around here. It's like, sounds expensive now, doesn't sound expensive in front of a judge or the news.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you pass on that, hey, your car needs new brakes. You're like, I'll get it next time. And then, cleaning up from that is obviously worse.
The car won't stop.
I will say, as a business owner, having just gone through renewing my whole insurance liability stuff, which we carry a ridiculous amount of insurance for the work that we do, and I can tell you that it went up a lot. So I'm guessing that's happening kind of across the board. So the insurance people raise these rates because they have past information on how much other security breaches have cost them. So that might not be a bad place if you're looking for like actual dollar values. If you have a insurance broker person you can talk to, like, hey, when you guys calculate this, what do you think the risk of like us having a ransomware event would be? And that's really good numbers. I will say too, if you get good at this is probably the silver bullet skill in cybersecurity of being able to convince a board to spend money on something.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Make sure you brush up on the silver-tonguedness so that when you get in front of those board members and you can say, listen, I'm going to solve all your fears. We're going to put some security in place. This money will seem like just money well spent every time you do it. So good stuff, Ben. I really like that because, they need to understand, and they typically don't, especially if you try to get too technical with stuff. Just talking in their language so they understand that if we don't engage in good cybersecurity practices, we're just asking for trouble and we're going to lose a ton of money. All right, that's great. That was a good question. Really good starter. Let's keep this ball rolling. Where are we at with the next question there, Sophia?
Well, money makes the world go round, so I'm not surprised y'all were able to get some fodder out of that. But this next one has to do with penetration testing. It says, can you please provide a proper and effective way or roadmap to learn pen testing? Okay.
Well, Ben, you've done pen testing, if I'm not mistaken. It's something you've dabbled in.
I've done a little bit of that.
What's your take on this?
Okay, so the question, I'm going to read this question as, how can a person get good at effective, like, learning how to pen test? Is that the way we think this question came?
I believe so.
All right, let's go with that. So pen testing, or really any kind of like security engagement where you show up and your job is to prove or help the team find ways to be better. We are basically a very specific kind of quality assurance, right? Like very, very specific in this thing will perform the way you want it to without other people getting access to it most of the time, right? Like that's the thing we can provide people at the end of an engagement. So if you're going to run a pen test, you have to be pretty aware of the way most of these other technologies work. It's hard to come into security, like learning offensive security stuff straight away and then be super effective at this, mostly because I'm going to skip to the end for a second. The value at the end is a report that helps the customer get better. And so if you can't provide recommendations like, I totally broke into your stuff, but I have no idea how you would stop me, That's not really very valuable. Like that's probably a great story at a bar in Las Vegas during August. Not so much an awesome help for a customer who's going to hire you to be a pen test. So a couple of things, you definitely have to have some good background. Depending on most organizations still have heavily Windows-based environments, so totally get used to understanding how to move around and operate in a Windows environment. Increasingly, we're seeing stuff move to like cloud and serverless and Kubernetes and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to be doing those kinds of things, you need to learn how some of those technologies work. I think taking some classes from places like IT Pro TV is a good foundation, right? Got to learn how some of these basic things work. And then, what I really like about cybersecurity, an industry unlike, say, civil engineering, is an industry that you can go experiment on a lot of stuff and fail a lot, and it doesn't really cost you anything. It doesn't hurt anybody. You can keep going. I fail at stuff all the time. A lot of things that we try fail spectacularly. For every awesome story I have about anything cool we've ever done, there's like 100 times when the thing didn't work and I was sitting at my keyboard like this for hours, right? Trying to get the pen test gods on my side. So I think you're going to have some committed time to this, like understanding research. There's a lot of times when we'll be working on a thing, we have to take a step back and go do like research on a thing that we've not really understood before, because obviously the reason we're not breaking in is we just don't understand how this thing works. And we need to step back and make that happen.
Ben, let me push it a little bit further even from that.
Yeah.
Because I think that I see that a lot, right? Yes, a lot of people just want to run to the finish line, even though they had never started before. And it's like, right. I understand that, but you got to get those skills. I do see a lot of people, like if you look at job posts, you'll see a lot of senior pen tester, right? If you go look at pen tester job posts, it's always like for senior, very few entry-level junior pen testing positions. So those are very coveted because there's a lot of people out there that maybe have got the CEH Pentest Plus, maybe even OSCP or so on and so forth. But it's like, okay, now how do I make that jump? Maybe these certs get me an interview, but how can I show some real world application? Are we seeing more internships or programs that are going to help people take those things they've learned from the classroom and apply them in some kind of real world capacity? How would they make that leap?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. So the problem with being a junior pen tester position opening is that means you have to have a company who's willing to bring you along, right? Which whether you're an in-house red teamer or you're like working for a consulting firm. For the consulting firm, the idea that they have to balance is like there's a cost of the project, there's a budget, and then there's like what they need to do to get the work done, right? And there may not always have budget for junior members, so sometimes those opportunities can be limited. Here's what I'll say though, no matter what you do, anywhere in IT, if you really want to get into security, you are at some point are going to be deploying a system that does something. And you're probably thinking about safeguards you can put in place to make sure it works correctly. And so what I would do if I were somebody who really want to get in this and I've taken like a CEH class or whatever, is let's say I'm on an endpoint support team at some big company someplace and you've got like 20,000 desktops you support or something. Think about as you push out like new patches and new other things, you have an idea that this would prevent an attacker from doing something, or that if somebody were doing something they weren't supposed to, you'd somehow know about it. I think I would start volunteering to be like, I will be the person that tests to make sure that our theory is right. It is amazing to me how few places will actually test security safeguards that they deploy. Do you know the most common method for testing a successful deployment of a security control is that it didn't break other things. That's it. That's the most common one. And not like, hey, does this stop ransomware? It's like, I don't know, but it didn't prevent accounting from opening Excel today. So that's a win, right? And it's like, well, it's not really the same thing. Important, but not the same thing. So what I would say is find a thing that you have something you just put out there. You're like, we're not gonna let anybody be a local admin anymore. As a good example of something that if you're on an end user support team, you could, right? Like, I'm going to look at all the ways I can make my account local admin and make sure that either it doesn't work, right? We block it, or I get an alert on it, right? And that is like really good stuff. I would write that down, like what you found. I would make like a GitHub gist or wherever the kids put it, Pastebin, whatever's going on these days, all the different things you did. And that becomes your resume basically. And that's the kind of stuff that people like me look for when we're hiring new consultants. Because that shows a bunch of things. Number one, curiosity. You're willing to do the research to find something out. You're willing to try things. You're going to fail a bunch. I'm sorry to say in advance, like it's not going to work a lot, but you're going to learn so much from doing that. And that is a way that I would encourage people to sort of create their own junior position. Because as soon as you show that, if you have a manager or anybody worth a darn, they will recognize that capability and they will harness that. And you'll get rewarded by being able to do more of those cool things.
Yeah, and kind of like, I think you were alluding to this earlier, the fact that you probably have a home network, and if you're a tech inclined person, you probably have a maybe an impressive home network.
Right.
Put in security controls into place. Now you're a SOC analyst, right? You're a SOC engineer, and then throw on that red team hat and start attacking your own stuff and see what you can do. Then take it another step farther, kind of piggybacking on what you were just saying 2 seconds ago, and write a report, obfuscating any kind of personal information, but make a report and then throw that out there in GitHub. Use that as some sort of public facing, make a blog post, do whatever. These are great ways, and that is real world skills. That was a real pen test. You had full permission to do it. The scope was all yours. Get crazy.
Yeah. You had results, you had findings.
Yep.
You're like, yeah, that thing worked, or no, it didn't. Like, we didn't get the alert. Like, we thought when this thing happened, we get an alert. We don't get any alerts. What's going on, guys? Like, it doesn't work correctly, right? Really, really good. And that portfolio will take you a long way. I mean, from cutting my teeth and early on, I just would spend a tiny bit of money to get a laptop that had enough like memory and hard drive that I could run some VMs.
Yeah.
Ran almost all Linux stuff because that was free, right? That was when it was really expensive to get Microsoft licensing. So I didn't do a lot of Windows stuff early on. Did a lot of Linux stuff, but you can create just about anything you want to run. There's so many good like resources out there now for like creating vulnerable things for you to practice on, and then move on from there and try it out. So yeah, there's so much cool stuff to do. You're really only limited by how much free time you have.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. All right, we've got more questions. Let's get to those. Sophia, what do you got for us?
We've definitely got plenty. This next one is about what certification is required to be a cloud security architect. So I'm curious about that too, because I have no idea where to start.
All right, I'm going to answer this one, and then Ben,
please.
you tell me whether or not I'm right. I'm going to go with none. There are none. Wow. Well, when you say required, I think we're speaking generally. If you talked about a specific job post and they put under the requirements section some certification, obviously that's going to be required, right?
But that's the answer. That's exactly right. Yeah. So cloud, like cybersecurity, but cloud especially is like brand spanking new. And I mean, there's definitely some good vendor ones, right? Like AWS fundamentals that you should definitely take if your company's planning on using AWS. But beyond that, I mean, this is something that is evolving really rapidly. Like, it's pretty hard to say, like, this is the definitive certificate that will get you in. Most of the times that I see job postings, there's a few certs that are like known to like HR folks that are used as like the great filter. And once you get past that, then it's kind of like, we can train you up on other things. Cloud is becoming very rapidly like the lab that I cut my teeth on coming up, where with a pretty modest budget, sometimes even totally free, you can replicate really complicated things, bring a whole ecosystem alive in somebody's cloud. Like, I remember reading this how-to Kubernetes guide in Google Cloud. So you didn't have to have any kind. You could have a Chromebook and follow this thing, right? It was amazing, and you could do it within the free tier that they offer, right? So there's a lot of capability you can do there, and there's a lot of things coming online now that are both tools to help you understand how to secure cloud and tools to show you, like, here's a vulnerable version of a cloud, go, enjoy the hacky hack stuff. And so that's really cool too. I think if I had to guess one, I think you're right, Daniel. I think it's whatever the job posting says is the required certification for that job.
Otherwise, I mean, to me, so I'm the kind of person that doesn't get too hung up on certifications. I think they're great for what they are meant to do. But personally, I don't feel them to be necessary in a lot of ways. They, like I said, they have their place, but there are people out there that have been plenty successful and never had a cert to their name, but they were able to show their skills in other ways. That's, to me, what the intention behind certifications are, is to be able to go, I've got something we all kind of agree proves I know how to do X, Y, or Z. So that's why they're valuable to a lot of people, and to myself included, is to be able to say, oh, look, this is the easy button on proving a skill set. You can take the hard route and do a bunch of stuff and put stuff out in the ether there for people to see and be able to like use that as part of kind of that portfolio business we were talking about just a second ago, and bring those things in and use that. I like to kind of like mingle things together, like take a little bit of a la carte style, grab some certs, do some things, make some write-ups, get out there in the public and bring that all together. To me, that's a really well-rounded resume. So if you're trying to get into cloud, look at stuff that's going to be very relevant to if you think, oh, I'm an AWS person, then go start looking at AWS certifications, and then you'll be able to take that and move on to the jobs that require AWS. So you kind of, and any job like board will allow you to filter by those types of things. So just kind of filter it down for AWS, security, so on and so forth. Look at the certifications that are out there that gear themselves to an AWS environment or a GCP environment or an Azure environment, whatever the case is. All good certs out there for all of that. So just find the ones that you think is going to be beneficial to you or required by whatever job you're looking for. Go grab that cert and get on your way. All right, Sophia, I know you got more questions.
I do. I'm curious to see how y'all answer this one. What is the best way to describe cybersecurity to someone who may not know what it is?
That's none of your business.
You're absolutely right.
That's an interesting question.
That is a really interesting question.
What is the best way to describe cybersecurity to someone who might not know what it is?
So we're describing it to like somebody's lovely grandma?
Yeah,
who's
I would take it that
80
way.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, tell me, do you get this? Do you get when people ask you what you do for a living and you say, "I'm a penetration tester," or maybe you use something a little more, common vernacular, like "I'm a hacker," I'm an ethical hacker, and they're like, that's weird. Do you get that?
I do. Well, so I usually say something really very like, oh, I'm in cybersecurity. And then my kid, like my son will say, he breaks into companies. I'm like, well, yes, that is actually what I do. Probably a little more succinctly put. Yeah. No, I would definitely need to work on that elevator pitch part.
I would say take the computer system that you use on any day basis and try to apply security to it. That is cybersecurity, like protecting those systems from attackers.
Yeah. I think if I had to break it down for somebody who wasn't even a technology person, I would say my job is to make sure that whatever you want to use on a computer is ready and waiting for you when you want to use it, and that information doesn't go to anybody you don't want it to go to. I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah, you kind of use the CIA triad there.
Yeah, you saw that. You caught the CIA. Yeah, there you go.
I see what you did there. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I like it.
Yeah.
Like the cut of
try
your
to be
jib,
like
sir.
real basic with it. Yeah.
No, that's really good, right? Kind of go to the three basic pillars of cybersecurity, and there's a reason they're the basic pillars, is because that's what we're trying to do, is secure access to things and secure availability to things and the integrity of it. So it makes total sense to kind of just lean on that model to describe what cybersecurity is. Good stuff.
And I think a lot of folks, when they first come into the field, think about the confidentiality. Like that makes perfect sense to them. Keep that stuff secret. But man, there's a lot of places we do work for that they could care less whether people know what's in this stuff or not, but the system better be available and information better be right.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're in like logistics or something, like you don't really want to run all over yourself to let everybody know what's in all these trucks, but like that's not the big, at the end of the day, they need to make sure these trucks move when they're supposed to. So the systems have to be up and they have to be right. And sometimes I think people forget that because they want to keep everything like tight and secret. And,
yeah. You and your logic. Enough of that. Sophia, question me.
Right, enough logic for the day. Okay. So this one says, are there any tips that you guys have to avoid burnout in cybersecurity?
Oh, I'll be interested in hearing your take on this. Ben, go ahead and fire off first here.
Well, so as a person who has experienced myself at least some level of burnout, I can say pretty safely that I think the most important thing for a person not to have burnout in cybersecurity is to recognize that this job doesn't need to be a 24/7 endeavor. I find myself drawn to some of these like security puzzles like outside of time because it's interesting to me, but I think it's also really important to have a hobby that isn't cybersecurity and where possible doesn't use a computer. I think it's super helpful to get away from the computer and have something that doesn't go in there. I think if you recognize like your phone ringing as like a physical manifestation of pain, I think you clearly have reached burnout stage. And it's time to ask your boss if you can move to a different department, right? Or find a different opportunity. If you're already in security, it's pretty easy to move around these days. It seems like that job market's pretty hot. And even the companies that weren't really down with remote security before or remote work before are totally there now. So you probably have a much bigger pool to select from than you thought that you did. But I think the other thing is you got to look around at the team that you rely on. I always tell people, like, if you're going to go for a job, there's three things that that can line up, and you can get by with 2 of them, but it's the work that you do that you enjoy it. The people that you work with aren't like, jerks that you dislike, and your manager that believes not only in like helping you do the best thing you can in this job, but like also prepares you for the next one, right? So if you have 2 of those things, you can probably make it happen. If you look around and only one of those things exists, it's probably time to go. And obviously, if none of those things are there, you definitely got to get out. Like pull the chute right away.
I remember I was working on my first stress-induced heart attack when I joined a fight club. No, no, but you're right. You start picking up when you can't turn it off. Like, no matter what you do, your brain is constantly going. That is the alarm bell to go, maybe it's time to dip into some of that vacation time I haven't used in 3 years. And
that's really good too.
With the family.
You're right, Daniel. And actually, that's amazing. There's a lot of people that won't take any vacation. We'll be getting towards the end of the year, and I'm like, "Are you going on a break?" Like, no, not really. I'm like, "We haven't taken like any vacation this year." We try to make a big deal about having people in our company take time off. Yeah. Like on a regular basis. And that does a couple of things for us. Like it helps make sure we don't have a single point of failure where like there's only one person that can do the thing. But it just, you can just tell it's a better vibe. When people come back and they're refreshed, they collaborate better. The solutions they come up with frequently take a lot less time and are way better than if you're like trying to like just power through it. That's actually one of my tricks too. I learned is if I'm sitting here and it's like 9:30 at night and I've been working on a problem all day and I'm just like banging away at it and I'm not making any progress, I like put it all away. Go do something else, go to sleep, come back the next day. And almost always within 5 minutes, the solution is like immediately obvious to me. And I probably would have stayed up to midnight, not fixing it, right?
You might as well have asked me to catch lightning in a bottle, sir. It was so easy for us to kind of get myopic and focused in on this problem. And okay, well, that didn't work. I got another, I got this idea, it'll work. And it's hard to go, just hit the pause button, go grab a Coke and a smile.
Do something else.
And get away from it for a hot minute. And almost invariably, and I don't know why, maybe because I'm stupid, I never learned that when I come back from taking a break from things, either going to bed or hanging out with my family or just doing a hobby or something, I sit down and it's almost like, well, let me try. Oh, that worked.
Oh, yeah, that works. That was it. Yep.
Invariably,
it's amazing.
That works that way. So
amazing. Yeah.
You just have to know that it's burnout is coming and you have to schedule those things. I think a lot of companies should start mandatory time off.
That's a good idea.
It's not an option. You're going home, we're not sending you emails or alerts, nothing is coming. You're getting nothing. So you might as well just shut it off.
Yep, absolutely.
And go decompress and then come back and be a better you.
That's right.
All right, Sophia, questions, please save us.
So this one is specifically for Ben. Sorry, Daniel.
That's okay.
This one's from Zach. He says, Ben, how did you get started in the industry?
So like a lot of folks, I sort of got an opportunity I probably didn't deserve and just recognized that I really liked it. So I was actually a communications officer in the Air Force. I graduated with a computer science degree, but that is not required for success in security. I just want to be very clear. I just happened to have that. But at the time, they were getting very serious about centralizing security for some, instead of having every base sort of do like some of their own, they were going to centralize it. And I just happened to be at one of the bases where they needed that to happen. And I happened to be available when they put the team together. And so I got to do like really cool, like kind of early on stuff in the Air Force. I was like, this is really fun. Like it scratched all the itches I had. Like it was a puzzle. It was fun. You got to do new things. You were creating stuff all the time. And so that was really where I got my start in security. And then I was just really fortunate to fall in with an organization after I left the Air Force that allowed me to do security engineer, work my way up inside there and like learned on the defending side first. And then I sort of transitioned over to doing a lot of more offensive stuff. And the only reason I did that was the advice I gave earlier was what happened. Like we started doing all this like security and the question came down like how can we make sure that we're like these defenses will work when the attackers came? And I was like, I don't know. I'll be right back. And that was like, we got to go actually do the thing that we're worried about this thing stopping, right? And that was really eye-opening to me for a bunch of reasons. One of them was I was pretty junior in my career and sort of thought that the only way to be secure was to spend more money. And I actually recognized after like trying to do the break-in stuff that the stuff that really slows you down as an attacker sometimes doesn't cost that much. And that was really pretty incredible.
A good special character filter will go a long way, won't it?
That's right. Oh, man.
Dang it.
There's some just basic things like, you don't need that at all. Why don't you turn that off? And all these problems just went away.
Yeah. Now, it's funny you say that you went through the Air Force. I have noticed a trend, is just in my anecdotally, that a lot of people that are in this business went the way of the military, either that be the United States military or whatever country they're from.
Yep.
Everybody's government requires, cybersecurity. If you get in there and you got kind of a head for it and you showed that aptitude, that's a great avenue. And then you're trusted by said government. And tell me how many people aren't getting jobs because they're not top secret clearance.
Right.
Yeah. Because you need clearance.
Yeah. It's an amazing foundation. You get a chance to do a lot of things that, frankly, you have no business doing. Like coming out of college as like a 21-year-old knucklehead, I was in charge of like the server farm on this space. Like, I have no business being there. I think I was smart enough to listen to like my senior master sergeant, and he kind of took me under his wing because he realized I wasn't going to get in his way and I was just going to help him. And I was able to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And so you get to do all kinds of cool things that otherwise you don't get to do. It takes a lot longer into your career to do it. So, there are so many other paths, but you're right, Daniel. Like if you are a young person who is like either in high school still or like early on in college looking for something to do, whether it's enlisted or officer, I happen to go officer path, but there's nothing about that has to happen. All the branches are really serious now. Like Army, the cybersecurity is like really significant. Like they have done it, and a lot of investment and a lot of talent now is being pulled into that. And like people are coming out of there and getting really great jobs with like high-end consulting firms because like they recognize that you've gotten the opportunity and the training that you need to be, functional against people who are trying to attack the United States government, right? Which is a pretty big target.
That's right. We want you.
Yeah,
All right. That said,
right.
Let's get into some more questions. Sophia, what do you got for us?
Well, this one's actually, it says from a prior service veteran, so it kind of goes with what you guys were just talking about. Yeah, right. This is from Sean. He says that he was Army Airborne, so he jumped out of perfectly good planes.
Yes, he did.
But he's wondering, for a prior service veteran with no degree but an A+ certification and experience at a tech support job, what's the next step he should take? He says he's going to be sitting for the SEC Plus, is that right?
Sec Plus.
Sitting for the Sec Plus. Sitting for the Sec Plus soon. He's taking ACI learning courses in CEH and CND. What role should I be looking for next after I pass Security Plus?
Man, he's got a pretty good foundation, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's
super good foundation.
Poised and ready to kind of move into the next thing. If you were him, Ben, where would you go?
Oh, man, there's so many great opportunities. Okay, well, so here we go. All right. There was a lot of opportunity for like being a security analyst, like a SOC analyst, right? Somebody who's going to sit down and use the tools that they've deployed to find attackers in the environment, right? There's alerts that are going off. Your job is to investigate. A lot of that is opened up to remote work now, and they are frequently looking for like junior folks they can bring in to help watch the scope and do some stuff, right? So that would be an opportunity, especially with the A+ and the Sec Plus and some other things. We mentioned earlier talking about in the scope of like certifications, but cloud security is a pretty awesome opportunity for a lot of people for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's brand new. Everybody's making it up. Nobody really knows how to do it well yet. And then the other thing is that I'm trying to think how to say this nicely. You know what? I'm not gonna say it nicely. There's a lot of like old fogies in security who like know how to do like firewalls and like network IPS and these other things. And like, they're like hunkered down in what they do. And they were kind of always holding people down from being able to proceed into more senior jobs. Well, the great news for us, for you, for the people who are willing to take this challenge on, cloud security throws all that out the window. None of that matters anymore. And you basically have to have the same kind of chops, almost like a developer, more than like an old school like network like firewall person, right? And so this gets rid of a lot of these people whose skills are no longer compatible with doing security in a cloud environment where it's all connected, it's all on the internet. There is no on-prem network, none of that exists anymore. And you have to go figure this out now. So I think if I were you, I would definitely be studying cloud security. I don't think this is news that most companies are moving rapidly to the cloud. I know an organization like my own, which is about 7 years old now, the only on-prem stuff we have is for like really sensitive things that we don't like, customers don't want us to have like as a cloud. So like, for example, we have a bunch of machines that are very good at cracking password hashes. For obvious reasons, we don't put that in places where we don't control like where that data is, but most of everything else we use, totally cloud. I can't imagine an organization that would be built today that would end up like deciding not to, at least most of their stuff, be cloud-based. And the benefit you have with cloud-based is all like infrastructure as code or whatever. And a lot of that stuff is just like the old way of securing things totally goes out the window. Identity is the boundary, which is a phrase that means nothing at the moment, but will eventually, right? And so that's where I would focus there. I think there's also going to be a lot of companies that need people on their security teams to do all the different functions, right? Whether we're talking about, I mean, it is true still that like most big companies, a lot of what drives their activity, the security team activities anyways, are compliance efforts. So they have to be like either regulation from a government, or there's some like, you know, some body out there like the payment card industries, PCI, for credit card security that like require you to meet some minimum level of whatever. And there's a lot of effort that goes still into making that happen. And they need people to help them do that. And if you really want to try the consulting game, there are like compliance consulting gigs that show up for those because they need people to be able to go collect that data from a customer. So, man, the sky's the limit right now, right? There's a lot of opportunity. And I think it's really just up to like, what do you want to do? There's so much cool stuff to do in security.
Yeah, and even with your traditional foundational knowledge that you have right now, you said you're kind of got some Cisco stuff going on, is I know Cisco, had somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn. His name was Dustin. And he was like, yeah, I'm a truck driver and I'm just trying to get in this security thing. And I just kind of encouraged him to keep looking and doing stuff and putting it out there. And he got picked up by Cisco saying, hey, we have this intern program. We'd love you to be a part of it. Like just randomly. So you getting it out there that you're doing this stuff. If you're hot on cloud, like, and Ben is absolutely right about this, start learning something about the cloud. Pick up how to use Kubernetes and learn about Kubernetes security and K8s and all that other stuff and cubes. And it's a wild west right now. And very few people have those specialties. So if you start trying to branch out into those things where no man has kind of gone before, you can find yourself easily a part of somebody's team as a valued asset because they don't know what's going on. They don't know how to do it. And they need it and they know it. So smart. You listen to Ben. Ben is smart.
Right.
All right, Sophia, what else do we got?
This one asks, in a nutshell, could you tell us what is virtualization?
Okay, well, virtualization is where you take something that looks real and you make it right. It's fun. So it's just
that's an NFT, right? Is that finally? I was trying to figure out what these NFT things are. That's got to be what it is.
I like that they use the word fungible, because it's just fun to say fungible, right?
Fungible.
Yeah,
that is fun to say.
It's an interesting lay. I mean, you could obviously Google search that and you're going to get a textbook type of definition. Yeah. But ultimately, it's just like using the unused resources.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, or like stacking a whole bunch of computers into one physical computer.
Yeah.
So you can because most of these computers, it's amazing. They sit there and they're mostly idle all the time, right? Every once in a while they spike up, have some work to do, and they go back to being like basically nothing. And some people looked at that like, we could probably stack a lot more computers in that thing. The other advantage, I guess, is that you can move it around much easier, right? Because you're not stuck on actual hardware anymore. It's like virtual hardware.
Oh man, when we went virtual, so I was working for an insurance company, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, so this whole array can go bye-bye, and we can build another one and just move it over.
Yeah,
that's simple.
Yeah, you can just move it over. I remember the first time somebody showed me in VMware that you could live migrate a server from one physical host to the other, and it didn't go down, and continued working. I was like,
yeah, it's sick.
That's so cool.
Yeah. You're just faking hardware. That's basically what's going on. You're utilizing the unused portions of your actual hardware by the operating system that is meant to work with, and going, hey, if I'm not using this RAM, go ahead and have access to it. Well, I'm going to make a fake computer over here, and you can work with that. And of course, that's probably the majority way we use it. Cloud obviously leans heavily on virtualization. There's that cloud thing again, right?
There's that cloud thing again.
It's a part of our everyday lives. So that's basically how cloud works. Instead of it being your computer, it's somebody else's computer that you pay to have access to and build fake machines.
Yeah. And it's how you're going to probably build your own little security lab, so you can learn all these cool tricks that you're trying to that looks awesome. How did that work? I'm going to go figure that out.
Yeah.
Yep.
VirtualBox and VMware Player, you're welcome. Enjoy.
Are free.
Yes, free.
Go get them.
Free 99, my favorite price.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, Sophia, what's our next question?
This next one comes from Forrest. They said, if you run any email client in Windows 10 Pro Sandbox, which itself is running Windows 10 Enterprise, I'm already confused. Is there any way the PC can be compromised by clicking on bad links or going to infected websites? So
Okay.
Can you break that down for me too?
So what it sounds like, and Ben, you correct me. We got the question. This is a complex question, but what it sounds like to me is they're saying if I build a sandbox, right, in virtualization, and I open an email that potentially is compromised, is now my whole machine compromised?
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah, I think that's what's up.
So I don't know specific. So Windows 10 Sandbox is a really cool feature. I don't know if they call it Windows 10 Sandbox or just Windows Sandbox. Doesn't matter. It's a cool feature. It's available, I think, in the Pro and Enterprise channels for sure, where you like basically get like a blank Windows 10 environment that's just like temporary, right? Like you run stuff in it. When you're done with it, you close it and it goes away. And so it is like the idea is like it's isolated from the rest of your operating system. It is like other systems in that it runs. I think it uses Hyper-V as the hypervisor in the background. It is a great way to isolate. So the premise of the question is, I have an email that I think might be dangerous, right? There's a link or attachment or something in there. Before I interact with it, I want to throw it into a sandbox and see. So my answer to whether or not that would protect you is probably there are. Like we see this at the Pwn to Own competition in Seattle frequently, and other places where there will be what's called a guest to host hypervisor escape. VMware frequently pays out on bug bounties for this. So does Microsoft for Hyper-V and all the others, where like something happening inside the guest operating system, in this case the sandbox, finds a way through a chain of dizzying exploits to the host operating system and still gets it there. So the answer is probably safe. Like that's pretty good. Like if somebody actually had that O-Day out there of like a sandbox escape, I would guess you would have to be a pretty special target for them to burn that O-Day on, right? That's not something you just throw around. That leads me to my second thought.
You don't think they're going to go after some rando on the internet?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just spraying my my sandbox escape everywhere.
Yeah, I could have made millions off this, but
that's right. Yeah,
worth it.
The other thing that I'll say is that links are frequently not on their own bad for the same reason. Like if you show up in Google Chrome, like, are they going to burn an O-Day on you as a target? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know who this person is, but it's very possible that just takes you to a page that is looking to ask you very nicely to what your credentials are, right? Or that's where the download is, right? And I think that's really where more of the danger is. I will also say that if somebody is that sophisticated, they will almost certainly have their malware at some point check and notice they're in the sandbox. And if they don't have a way out of said sandbox, it won't even execute. So you might get kind of like a weird false reading on that. I know, like, so when we send payloads over as part of like a phishing test and we want to prove code execution, we do in our payloads frequently put like VM checks, because that's what the sandboxing, like a lot of companies, when email comes in, through their email security filter, it'll take any attachment and send it into a sandbox that runs it real fast and tries to see, like, what does this thing do when it runs? So we detect that we're in said sandbox. So we don't do anything. And it's like, oh, this is cool. Here you go. And then it really runs for real on like the real operating system. And there are different checks you can do and stuff in there. But my guess is that if they were sophisticated enough to escape sandbox, they would also know they were in sandbox and probably wouldn't run there. But I would recommend that. Like if you're looking at a thing, I wouldn't tell your users to do that. Like hopefully you are the security administrator and you're trying to figure out how to safely interact with the thing. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and there are even online services that will provide this capability. So if you're not using like Windows 10 or whatever, and you want to have a sandbox environment, you can just go to, you got some names off the top of your head? Because they're escaping me right now. But it's really cool.
There's a couple out there. Yeah, there's a couple out there, like Joe Sandbox does a really good job of this. There's a hybrid analysis site that does a good job of this.
That's the one I know.
And they frequently will do a free one for you with the caveat that they're going to make it publicly accessible to other people. So as long as it's not a file that you think might have sensitive information in it, then I would say, yeah, go for it. They do a great job, all of these different services do, of showing you like it opened these network connections to these places, it made these files, it did these registry reads, these registry changes, like everything it would need to do, right, to run. And so that's cool.
I love this question because it took us from virtualization to O-Days and escapes and Pwn to Own, and then we're off onto sandboxing and security mechanisms that will help us understand how they escape. There's a lot of good security information, and that was the question right there.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was a good one. All right, let's get another good one. Sophia, what do we got?
This next one comes from Tim. Tim just passed the Pen Test Plus. Shout out to Daniel and Ronnie for that one. Ooh. 5 years in help desk. Where should I pivot to?
That's a good question. I mean, so let's talk about Pentest Plus. And Ben, I'm glad I've got you here because How far has that gotten to? Because as we kind of know, there are certain certifications that are out there that are kind of like they push you to the front of the line kind of thing. It's not a guarantee to anything, but it does help when it comes to at least getting to talk to someone that might have the capability of giving you work. Has Pentest Plus gotten into that league, at least to where it's becoming more recognized and valuable to those that are out there trying to get it? I think it's a good certification, just from my personal experience. But I'm wanting to see from your perspective, because I'm sure you get resumes and stuff all the time. Are we seeing Pentest Plus more often? And if so, what kind of jobs are they looking for?
Yeah. We do see Pentest Plus more often, I think. I think that is definitely growing in popularity. I think these types of certs, Pentest Plus included, do a great job of showing us that you have an interest in something and that you are willing to learn it and then prove some level of aptitude, right? Because you passed the test to get the Pentest Plus cert. I still think that beyond that, we still look for the other markers of things you've done that are sort of evidence-based, right? As opposed to other kinds of, I'm trying to think like there's no cert that you could come in with me and instantly I would say, oh, you're hired, but because it's more the experience side.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of get pigeonholed into thinking that the cert is the path to enlightenment, right? That's how you get to the mountaintop, and it's only one piece of the puzzle.
That's right.
Depending on the job, it can be a large piece of that puzzle, but typically it's just one of many equally important pieces of said puzzle, right?
Well, and it's a great stepping stone, right? Because now you know how to use some of these tools. So let's go applying from a cert, passing a cert is great, but applying that knowledge in a way that means something is where the whole transition is, right? So being able to take stuff you learned in a pen test job and figure it out. I mean, one thing, you probably do this a lot on the help desk, but you are a prime target for social engineering because you got the keys to do all the things that attacker wants, right? You can get them access to people's email inbox. You can get them to reset passwords. So you should be thinking already about what you obviously are. You took the Pentest Plus. So that's where I would say that sounds like an obvious candidate for somebody who could immediately go to a SOC job, a SOC analyst job, and kill it. Because you would already know how operations look and what normal is to very quickly figure out that's not normal. We should go check that out.
Yeah, great answer. Ben, this has been a lot of fun. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about OnDefend. Let everybody know about your company and about your organization, what you do, and how they can reach out to you if they need you.
Awesome. Yeah. So OnDefend, we're a security consulting firm. We do lots of fun things like pen testing. We do a lot of breach and attack simulations. We build some tools that customers use with us. It's a ton of fun. You got the website up here, ondefend.com. We'd love to hear from people. We're always up for fun stories and looking for folks to join the team.
All right. Well, Ben, thanks again so much for joining us. It's been awesome. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Looking forward to the next time we get to chat. But I'm going to go ahead and slip it back over to Sophie to close this out. But you've got some stuff for us today, don't you?
I do. I do have some things to give away. But first, I want to tell you about our IT Pro TV subscriptions. You can get a personal membership that provides complete access to all the IT Pro TV courses with or without practice exams and virtual labs. Now, if you're part of an IT team, you'll want to check out the IT Pro TV business page. That offers a tour of the Pro Portal, which is used to maximize your team's investment in training. And if you sign up for a personal membership, Daniel, generous man that he is going to give you 30% off if you enter the promo code, Daniel30, the promo code Daniel30. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, the winner of our IT Pro TV swag. The winner is Everett. Congratulations, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you back here again soon on All Things Cybersecurity. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us today. You will receive a link to the recording of the webinar delivered to your inbox. Remember, the coupon code is webinar30. See you back here for the next IT Pro TV webinar.